Nice. Okay. मैं पिछली बार we were talking about basically CSR. So when we talk about CSR, of course, you have this basic idea already that CSR is corporate social responsibility. And today we look at this in some detail. What companies do, what are the activities which are allowed by the government, which are the companies which have been very active in this. कई तरह की चीजें हैं. So we will talk about these things. And then we will talk about something called the triple bottom line. I'm sure Dipti in BCom would have touched this area. Triple bottom line, Dipti, did you come across this word? No. Okay. Then in that case, what the class that we do today for both of you, ये एक मतलब एक पुरानी चीज है, लेकिन इसमें आजकल ये और important होता जा रहा है. It's becoming very important, this triple bottom line the concept. So we will look at this. So my main goal today is to finish the CSR component, then finish the triple bottom line, और उसके बाद we move to unit 3. So unit 3 basically will be about fundamental principles in finance, capital budgeting decisions, इस तरह की चीजें वो वहां हम लोग चलेंगे. तो ठीक है, then we will start with our externalities जो हम लोग कर रहे थे पिछली बार. You remember, आप लोग दोनों को याद है ये? You remember externalities?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Employment, employable.
Positive and negative.
हाँ, it can be negative, it can be positive also. तो इसमें बेसिक कॉन्सेप्ट ये था कि when an industry functions, at that point of time, sometimes they don't think about the impact that they are having on the external environment, the area outside the company. So companies are concerned with, let's say, making profit or doing good for their stakeholders, but sometimes the victim of this is the environment. As in this photo, you can see this river has been polluted. The river was there in the beginning. The company came later. The company set up. The company began to produce something. And then gradually, they thought this was something which we have a right to do. Whatever effluents came out, the waste material, that was simply dumped in the river. Now, the thing is, don't ever feel that this is something which is done only in our country. This is something which is done in all countries. And the result is that today we have created an environment which is highly damaged. Some parts of it may not ever be okay. It is that bad. If you people read a little on climate change, you'll be shocked at what generations older than yours have done. We, I think, are all guilty. Our generation, the generation before us, everybody who has not given environment, looked at it as sensitively as they could have, they are all responsible for where we stand today. From the time the Industrial Revolution started, many hundred years ago, from that time onwards, we have been polluting the environment and creating trouble. Now, the negative parts are very clear. But there can also be some, as far as society is concerned, there can also be a positive side to this. And the positive side happens when it creates employment. Like when the setting up of a company in a particular area results in employment in that area. In many cases, what happens is that the city expands, the city develops. I think here some of the best examples would be Hyderabad, Pune, Bangalore first, then Hyderabad, then Pune. I live very near Pune, so I see how the city itself has probably increased 4 times in size over the last 20 years. And it has provided employment to millions of people. Economy has gained quite a lot. So those are again externalities, something which the company may not have actively tried to do, but this happened. Okay. Now the next question here, which becomes important, is whose responsibility is this externality. So there was a time when people said that the local government, that local government is responsible. They have to do whatever they can to fix the problem. The role of the companies as the perpetrators of the, or let's say the originators of the problem, that was not so clear. So municipalities were responsible for paying for the effects of pollution from a factory in the area. And maybe this was because of the fact that there was a certain amount of, what shall I say, clout that the companies had. जो companies हैं वो उनकी अपनी धाक होती है ना. So maybe because of that, they were able to force the local governments to feel responsible about this. And then residents were responsible for their healthcare costs as a result of the pollution. In an extreme case of this, you can think of the tragedy which happened in 1984 in Bhopal. You are aware of that? Union Carbide had a plant in Bhopal. You must read about this if you have not read this. And the plant was damaged, gas leaked into the air, and the number of deaths is in the thousands. Literally, thousands of people died. The effects were so bad that some people suffered from different types of poisoning, which went into the next generation. Babies which were born during that period, they were also affected by the pollution. Now, who was responsible for this? The company never paid. Everybody, more or less, was responsible for their own healthcare. Nobody else was paying for them. Now, gradually, after the late 1990s, what happened was governments began to feel that why should we be responsible? The reason for the pollution is the factory. It is these producers who are making so much money. So these are the people who have to actually control themselves. So legislation began to come. And then they began to say that if you create problems for the environment, we will charge you for it. Or alternatively, you put in place systems which will help to reduce the impact, bad impact that you have on the environment. Now, because of this, what happened was, like suppose you are, a company is, let's say, cleaning up the let's say the effluents that it has, whether it is discharged into the air. For example, think of a thermal power plant. If you look at the huge chimneys now, which are there in the plant, it discharges these very dirty fumes into the air. Your clouds of smoke you will see coming out of these smokestacks. और ये चिमनीज आपने देखा होगा इधर उधर कहीं भी. If you go into industrial areas, you will see this. Now, इसको साफ करने की जो रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी थी वो कंपनीज को दे दी गई कि भाई दैट एयर हैज टू बी क्लीन. जो आपका जो निकल रहा है बाहर उसको साफ करो. If you are pumping dirty chemicals into the river, then first treat those chemicals. उसके बाद आप उसको करो. तो इससे क्या होगा? The environment will be damaged less. But where is the cost? The cost is being borne by the company because they have to put up a system of cleaning the effluent. The effluent is the waste. So cleaning up of the waste becomes an additional cost for the company. What did the company do? It passed on the cost to the consumer. It's very simple. If I treat this as a cost of production, then it's so simple for me. I will simply pass it on and increase by increasing the price of the goods that I produce. If I have a good market, if everything is good, then there is no problem at all. Now, how do we overcome this? So taxes are one solution. What you can do is you can say that, okay, we will tax companies which do not follow the environmental laws. So we'll tax them more. And you can also have a tax on the goods itself. Company is producing some goods. Like, for example, you have extra taxes on cigarettes. Okay. Now, the extra taxes on cigarettes are put not for this reason. It is put to discourage the sale of cigarettes. So that has an impact on the company. And the company finds that if yesterday it was able to sell, let's say, 100 cigarettes, today, because of these rules, it is coming down. It has probably come down to less than half of what used to happen, let's say, when I was your age, when cigarettes were very, very popular. Now, this way also, suppose a company does not follow certain laws, it continues to pollute the environment. Now, if I put a tax on the commodities that the company produces, what will happen? Compared with other companies producing similar products which are following these laws, the environment laws, on which taxes are not there, the produce higher in cost. So therefore, they won't be competitive. They may be losing market share. Did you understand this? If I impose a tax on a non-compliant company and the cost of its goods, of its finished goods increases, and the cost is more than the cost of similar goods available in the market, then obviously customers will prefer to buy those other goods. They will not buy my goods. And because of that, I will lose market share. So this was another way of penalizing the companies. Now, regulation is considered to be the best way. You have rules, force companies to follow the rules. If they don't follow the rules, you shut down the company. So there are inspections, environmental regulations, there is health-related legislation. There are inspectors who go to these factories, they have a look at what is happening there, and then they continue. And the other way, why were we talking about externalities is encourage the companies to put in place corporate social responsibility programs. This is the other way of discouraging them. So when you do that, what happens is that the company is forced to give something back to the society. That is the logic here. Now, just a little about how this CSR thing came. Oh, so it is defined like this, but not limited to projects or programs with reference to activities that are specified in the schedule. That means, as per the Act, the law which came on CSR, they have a schedule at the end. A schedule, now, just for your knowledge, is a list. Schedule has a list of things. In this particular case, the list relates to activities which are considered to be fit for CSR. What are these activities? Projects or programs related to activities undertaken by the board in pursuance of a recommendation of the CSR committee, according to the declared CSR policy, subject to the condition that such policy covers subjects explained in the schedule. So the company will have a CSR committee, and that CSR committee will give a recommendation. Let us do these activities as CSR. And these activities will then be done by the company. What are those activities? We'll see in a slide ahead. Now, corporate social responsibility is required for all companies, private limited company, public limited company, anyone, if its net worth of is 500 crores or greater. So the net worth of a company, this is something which Deepti, of course, knows very well. Aapka, Vivek, you may have looked at this in some statements, or if you're not aware, it simply means the total, let's say, the total assets that you have minus the outside liabilities. Or in other words, you take it in a simple way, the total equity that you actually have, that will be your net worth. Think of it like this. Now, companies with a turnover of rupees 1,000 crores or greater. So if the sales are more than 1,000 crores, they have to do CSR. Companies with a net profit of rupees 5 crores or greater. If any of these three criteria they apply, then the company mandatorily has to spend 2% of its net profit on CSR. Okay. Now, how there is a whole procedure which has been put in place for this. Now, how does this happen? So the board of directors of a company plays a significant role in the CSR activities of the company. The role of the board is as follows. Board क्या करेगी? They will first make a CSR policy and they will approve it. This is the policy that we have. Then it will ensure its implementation. ये नहीं कि policy करके वो सो गए. They have to make sure that it is implemented properly. Then जो भी CSR पॉलिसी है, जो एनुअल रिपोर्ट होती है कंपनी की, उसमें इसके बारे में वो डिस्कस करेंगे. There will be a chapter on this in which they will discuss what our CSR policy is, what are the different activities in which we are actually making an effort to put money into it and to do something good for society. All this information has to be placed on the company's website. And then you have to make sure that whatever plan you have made, that plan is actually followed. Now, there is no penalty if let's say the actual amount which is there, if it is not spent, there is no penalty as such. But it is noted. That thing is noted. And in the board's report, and the report is placed before the board, they have to explain why it was not done. And this is a public document. People will know this is not done. So all qualifying companies required to have a CSR committee are required to spend at least 2% of its average net profit for the directly preceding 3 financial years on CSR activities. They will form a committee comprising of 3 or more directors. They will make a policy about the activities which they want to undertake. They will also tell you the amount of expenditure that will be incurred, and this will be monitored by the board. Broadly, a policy will be made. Some directors will be made responsible for overseeing the policy. And after that, they have to make sure that it is implemented. Now, what are the activities which they can actually implement? So the activities should relate to some of these things. Eradicating extreme hunger and poverty. This is one. Promotion of education. School, college, aap khol ke dikhaiye. Do something for the poor people. Promoting gender equality and empowering women. Whatever you can do for women, you do that. Maybe you have a women's school, maybe you start off a working hostel for women. कुछ भी उस तरह का चीज जो आप कर सकते हैं. Reducing child mortality. Suppose हम vaccination programs करें, nutrition programs करें in those neighborhoods which are poor, and we try to ensure that जो maternal health है वो अच्छी हो जाती है. Improving maternal health, combating human immunodeficiency virus, acquired immune deficiency syndrome, malaria, मतलब HIV, AIDS, malaria, अदर डिजीजेस जो इस नेचर की हैं, अगर उसमें आप कुछ बजट एक लेके आप कुछ कर सकते हैं, इफ यू कैन, और आप यू कैन कंट्रीब्यूट द मनी टू एन ऑर्गेनाइजेशन विच इज वर्किंग इन दीज एरियाज, उससे भी काम चल जाएगा. एंड देन इफ यू कैन डू समथिंग फॉर द एनवायरनमेंट, that is also welcome. You can also set up some institutions for enhancing vocational skills. मतलब जो लोगों की क्षमता है to be employed, you have try to skill people. उसके अंदर skills build up कीजिए. If you can do this, that is another good thing. Apart from that, you should also try to do something specifically for the scheduled tribes, scheduled castes, other backward classes, minorities, women, and such other matters as may be prescribed. But the government has given these people a certain area कि आप इसमें काम करो. This is the area where you should be actually working. Now, इसमें we can look at some of the companies. I have taken 4 or 5 companies now just to give you an idea कि ये लोग CSR में किस तरह का काम किए. So the first company, ये सब 2021 के फिगर्स हैं, थोड़े पुराने हैं बट बेसिकली यही ट्रेंड है इसका कि गोदरेज कंज्यूमर प्रोडक्ट्स लिमिटेड, जैसे ना गोदरेज के शेविंग क्रीम्स आते हैं, शैम्पूज आता है और उस तरह की चीजें हैं. They spent 34 crores on CSR initiatives in this year. और according to their report, जो भी काम इन्होंने किया, इससे करीब 3 लाख लोगों को फायदा हुआ. कैसे लोग थे ये? इन वल्नरेबल कम्युनिटीज में थे. दैट मीन्स कि ये गरीब थे, किसी न किसी वे में इनको प्रॉब्लम्स थी. ये लाइवलीहुड रिकवरी प्रोग्राम्स पर ज्यादा काम किए और छोटे छोटे एंटरप्रेन्योर्स, नानो एंटरप्रेन्योर्स, छोटे एंटरप्रेन्योर्स को ये हेल्प किए. उसके बाद ये एक जीरो वेस्ट टू लैंडफिल एंड वाटर पॉजिटिविटी, इसमें काम इन्होंने किया. जो हम लोग डंप करते हैं, लैंडफिल्स आप समझ रहे हैं ना, जो हम लोग, जो कचरा होता है जो जाके लैंड में जो डंप कर देते हैं, उसमें जो है कुछ उसको ये करने का, उसमें से लेट्स से आप यू टेक दैट और उससे आप एनर्जी जनरेट कर लीजिए, कुछ भी कीजिए जिससे कि वो वेस्ट ऐसे पड़ा ना रहे वहां. पानी का जो ये है, जो क्वालिटी है, उसको इंप्रूव करने के लिए इफ यू कैन डू समथिंग, उस तरह का काम इन्होंने किया है. The company is 100% extended producer responsibility compliant. It takes back the post-consumer plastic packaging waste equivalent to the plastic packaging it sells out. मतलब कि जो इन्होंने पैकिंग पर खर्च किया है, या जो भी वो खर्च नहीं, जो उसमें प्लास्टिक्स और जो अदर जो मटेरियल्स है, जो जिसको इन्होंने यूज किया है फॉर पैकेजिंग, वो वापस भी लेने का कुछ प्रबंध ये कर चुके हैं. उसके लिए इंफोसिस का, they have a founder in Narayan Murthy who has, and his wife Sudha Murthy, who have been very active in this field. They have publicized it a lot, they speak about it a lot, and they are active even now when they are no longer, let's say, like for example, Narayan Murthy is no longer chairman of Infosys, but his initiatives for doing something good for society, that continues. तो कम्युनिटी डेवलपमेंट, इंस्टीट्यूशन बिल्डिंग, सस्टेनेबिलिटी रिलेटेड इनिशिएटिव्स, इस तरह की जो चीजें हैं कि हम कुछ ऐसा काम करें जो यहाँ पे कम्युनिटीज डेवलप करें, इंस्टीट्यूशंस हम बिल्ड करें लोगों के लिए, या कुछ भी ऐसा करें जिससे सस्टेनेबिलिटी बढ़े. दे आर स्पेंडिंग मनी ऑन दोज थिंग्स. और ये डिजिटल स्किल्स के लिए दे हैव वर्कड इन अलाइनमेंट विद इट्स ESG विजन. इसमें सोशल गवर्नेंस वगैरह, मतलब कि बेसिकली ये क्या करते हैं कि जिससे एनवायरनमेंट को फायदा हो, जिससे कम्युनिटी को फायदा हो, उसमें ये पैसे खर्च करने के लिए तैयार हैं. They have developed learning content. They are providers of learning content, and the whole purpose is, अगर हम information provide करें people को free of cost, then it will help. It helps me to empower people, community, society, and the goal is over the next. So this program started in sometime in 2021. So by 2025, they managed to empower at least 10 million people. Then you have another company which is active here. That is Wipro. Now, what has Wipro done? Wipro had a budget of 251 crores for CSR in FY 2021. It has supported almost more than 1561 projects covering humanitarian aid, integrated healthcare support, livelihood generation. मतलब सी आप इससे ना ये समझ सकते हैं कि कौन कौन से एरिया में ये लोग अपना पैसे लगा रहे हैं. So humanitarian aid, healthcare, education, employment बढ़ाना, skills बढ़ाना. These are the basic areas. अच्छा, जैसे ये पर्सनल हाइजीन किट्स जो हैं वो लोगों को दे रहे हैं. They have distributed 330 million meals. जैसे लोगों को जो पुअर पीपल के लिए ये लोग अपना इस तरह का अरेंजमेंट्स ये किए हैं. Now, instead of me reading this out for each of the companies, I will of course be sending you this PPT. Have a look at this. It will give you an idea about what these companies have done. ITC has been very active in social forestry, in trying to have plantations of trees, so that helps in conserving the soil, in making sure that soil erosion, etc., is not increased. They have vocational training programs. तो आपको इससे एक आइडिया हो जा रहा होगा कि what are the areas in which companies are working for this particular in this area, in the area of CSR, waste recycling program. So that this was just to give you an idea about what is happening in this area of CSR. We now come to the triple bottom line. Deepti, are you there? Deepti and Vivek?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, fine. So triple bottom line, see, these are the three things. Now, Deepti will tell you that whenever we speak about bottom line in the context of accounts, we are referring to the net profit, the profit that a company makes. Now, in the triple bottom line, the company is also supposed to look at the people and the planet. That means what people broadly would mean the community in which they operate. The people all around them, community, society, think of it like that. And the planet, of course, means are they in any way damaging the environment? Because the main point here is that if you are damaging the environment, then in that case, your business is not sustainable. A day will come when you will no longer be able to operate because you would have damaged the earth to such an extent that how will you actually manage? So this is becoming more and more important as we go ahead. So what is the economic value of a company? You find out its economic value, and from that you minus the negative impact that it has had on its environment. So when you do this, only then you come to realize this company has this economic value. And as the situation is becoming more and more critical, as people are becoming more aware about what the whole issue of environment and climate change means, this thing is becoming much more important. Now, this in itself has been made into some sort of a business opportunity, because business leaders are realizing that if they can have good business strategies, and if they do this, and if people realize that this company is environment friendly, then this will be good for their company. People will want to give business to a company which they feel is actually doing something for the environment. So if you look at the P's individually, first P is profit, obviously, because in a capitalist economy, firm success most heavily depends on its financial performance or the profit it generates for shareholders. So the strategies which they make, the business decisions which they have, all are designed basically to maximize profits. And the other side, of course, is that they will try to do everything to reduce costs that is possible. Now, in the past, this was the only P that mattered. The other P's had no value. This was the P that was important. This is what everybody was actually concerned about. Now that is changing. And they are beginning to realize that they have to use the wealth that they have, the resources that they have, to bring about a positive change in the world without hampering financial performance. And quite often these two things work together in the sense that if they are able to do something good for the environment, it sometimes also means that more and more people are attracted towards their company and more people are buying their products. Now, in many cases, adopting sustainability initiatives has proven to drive business success. ये वाला point आप note कीजिए कि it is not something, this whole CSR and this whole triple bottom line thing is not something which is a one-way street, which जहां वो सिर्फ आपको खर्च करने पर मजबूर कर रहा है. अगर आप जेन्युइनली कुछ कर रहे हैं और लोगों को ऐसा लग रहा है कि ये कंपनी जो है वो एक्चुअली अपने एनवायरनमेंट के लिए कुछ कर रही है, तो लोग भी उस कंपनी को सपोर्ट करते हैं. दैट इज द पॉइंट टू रिमेंबर हियर. नाउ दूसरा है पीपल. तो पीपल में आप जहां पर हम लोग डिस्कस कर रहे थे ये कॉन्सेप्ट स्टेक होल्डर्स का, आप याद कीजिए कि इट इज नॉट जस्ट द शेयर होल्डर हु इज अ स्टेक होल्डर. The customers, the employees, the members of the community, society, everyone is a stakeholder. In fact, वो भले ही बेजान हो, लेकिन आपके अगल बगल जो जितनी चीजें हैं, जो environment हमारी है, that is a major stakeholder because you are operating within that environment. If you do not actually do something for the environment, if you are not sensitive to the environment, then that can create trouble. So some simple ways companies can serve society include ensuring fair hiring practices. People के केस में आप जो hiring practices आपके हैं, जो recruitment के practices हैं, ये भी एक गोल है कि make sure that these are fair. जो अच्छे लोग हैं उनको आप लीजिए. Don't take qualified people. Take people who are sensitive, people who understand. And encourage volunteerism in the workplace. मतलब कि जो आपके employees हैं, अगर वो कोई अच्छे सामाजिक काम के लिए वॉलंटियर करना चाहते हैं, डू दैट, हेल्प देम टू डू इट. अभी रिसेंटली, जस्ट टुडे, a friend of mine was telling me that his daughter works for Citibank. तो she is obviously a high income earner, उसके लिए काम करती है. अभी वो 1 साल का sabbatical ली for the purpose of basically joining the Teach India program, जिसमें कि she spent time teaching school children for 1 year voluntarily and did not take any money. And then now she has gone back to Citibank. तो this is a Citibank इसके लिए इसको नौकरी से नहीं निकाली. Citibank ने कहा कि नहीं, अगर आप इस काम को करना चाहते हैं तो अच्छी बात है, आप करो. हम लोग आपको, since you are not working with us at this moment, हम लोग आपको सिर्फ 50% सैलरी देंगे. So for these people, even 50% is a big amount. So she said कि okay fine. And the school she was working in, they offered 20,000 rupees. ये लड़की कही कि नहीं, I don't want that money. मैं जो भी काम कर रही हूँ, it will be purely voluntary. So this is the concept, encouraging volunteerism in the workplace. कि लोग जो हैं उनको आप encourage कीजिए कि भाई if there is something you can do to give back, do it. They can also look externally to effect change on a larger scale. For instance, many organizations have formed successful strategic partnerships with non-profit organizations that share a common purpose-driven goal. For example, अगर आप इस पे कुछ रीडिंग करना चाहें तो ICICI has partnered with many organizations for the purpose of what? Financial inclusion. कि जो हमारे ऐसे लोग हैं, mostly very poor people, who are still outside the banking system. They have no place where they can save their money, no place where they can actually get credit. ऐसे जो लोग हैं, NGOs हैं which are helping to explain to these people that you must become part of the banking system और किस तरह से banks can help you to get money, to save money and to improve the quality of your life. So ICICI has been very active in that area. That is also a way of looking at this second P, people. Third, the point I was making earlier on, ever since the Industrial Revolution, all big companies, small companies, in one way or the other, they have all been adding to the amount of pollution in the environment. और आज के दिन में it has become a key driver of क्लाइमेट चेंज, ग्लोबल वार्मिंग की बात आप लोग पढ़ते ही हैं, देयर इज नथिंग न्यू अबाउट दैट। ये भी आपको पता है कि देर आर मेनी क्लाइमेट चेंज कॉन्फ्रेंसेस जिसमें कि एट द हाईएस्ट लेवल इंटरनेशनली ऑल ओवर द वर्ल्ड से लोग आते हैं फ्रॉम ऑल द बिग कंट्रीज, जिसमें कि दे टॉक अबाउट द डैमेज विच इज बीइंग डन टू द planet and what they can do to address this problem. A recent report found that 100 companies in the energy sector are responsible for roughly 71% of all industrial emissions. एनर्जी सेक्टर में क्या आ रहा है? ऑयल, कोल, न्यूक्लियर, ये वाला जो पूरा एरिया है, ऑल दीज थिंग्स आर एडिंग पोल्यूशन टू द एनवायरनमेंट। सबसे ज्यादा अगर कहीं से आता है तो इसी सेक्टर से आता है। ओके, अपार्ट फ्रॉम ये तो एक साइड है, द वे दे डैमेज द अर्थ। जिस जगह पर अगर आप कभी कोई एक माइनिंग एरिया में जाएं एंड यू गो एंड सी द वे दैट इंटायर एरिया में जितने मतलब ऑल वेजिटेशन इज गॉन, द लैंड इज एब्सोल्युटली, आपको लगेगा जैसे कोई बॉम्ब गिर गया हो यहाँ, इतना हालत खराब होता है। आई हैव बीन इन झारखंड, आई हैव सीन दीज एरियाज, इट इज हॉरिबल। हम लोगों को तो मिनरल्स मिल जाते हैं, लेकिन एट व्हाट कॉस्ट? व्हाट इज इट डूइंग टू द अर्थ? सो ऑल बिजनेसेस, यहां पर यू नीड टू अंडरस्टैंड दिस वर्ड, कार्बन फुटप्रिंट। सुना है कभी इस वर्ड का? एनी वन ऑफ यू, दीप्ति और विवेक, हैव यू हर्ड ऑफ दिस वर्ड, कार्बन फुटप्रिंट? Carbon footprint essentially is a way of measuring your contribution to carbon emissions, that means to pollution. इसमें
Sir,
हाँ, बताइए।
example is carry bag. There is no planet B. Companies are
हाँ
taking
ओके,
initiative.
हाँ ठीक है, वो दैट इज अ स्मॉल इनिशिएटिव, लेकिन उसके साथ भी ये है कि कैरी बैग्स, इतने ज्यादा लोग कैरी बैग्स यूज करते हैं कि अगर आप इस पर कुछ माने बायोडिग्रेडेबल कैरी बैग्स वगैरह अगर आप ले आते हैं, लोग अगर उसको यूज करने लगे, तो डेफिनेटली इट कैन हेल्प। यहाँ पर पर्सनली ओवर द लास्ट 1 year or so, I have been trying to use biodegradable ये कैरी बैग्स मेड ऑफ ऑर्गेनिक मटेरियल। कोशिश ये किया गया है। ये देखिए, we will have a candle lit class today. Okay. Now, carbon footprint का कॉन्सेप्ट क्या है कि when we burn fuel, कोई भी ईंधन को जब आप जलाते हैं, इट प्रोड्यूसेस ग्रीन हाउस गैसेस सच एज, कौन से गैसेस हैं? कार्बन डाइऑक्साइड, मीथेन, नाइट्रस ऑक्साइड एंड फ्लोरिनेटेड गैसेस। दे आर ऑल कैटेगराइज्ड एज CO2। और इंटरेस्टिंगली हमारे जो क्लाइमेट चेंज कॉन्फ्रेंसेस होते हैं, they are all called, they all have this CO word, COP. So carbon footprint refers to the total amount of greenhouse gases released into the Earth's atmosphere as a result of the activities of a particular individual, organization, or community. This is the basic point in carbon emissions. और जब कभी भी हम किसी भी वे में फ्यूल यूज करेंगे, the emissions from that burnt fuel will ultimately go into the atmosphere and this will result in these greenhouse gases. और जैसे जैसे ये greenhouse gases बढ़ते जाते हैं, they deplete the ozone layer and they create problems for us. Now, reducing emissions, how do we reduce emissions? What can corporates do to reduce emissions? So एक तरीका ये हो सकता है कि हमारे जो ज्यादा पोल्यूटिंग फ्यूल्स हैं, जैसे फॉर एग्जांपल कोल, इनको आप यूज करना कम कर लीजिए, डोंट यूज दिस। व्हाट कैन ट्रीटिंग एफ्लुएंट्स बिफोर रिलीजिंग देम इनटू द एयर, बिजली आ गई बॉस। Okay, so we need not have a candlelit class. But then treating effluents, that means waste material, before releasing them into the air or water. Investing in clean energy, protecting forests. ये सब चीजें हमारे जो companies हैं, they can do this. This will at least help to reduce the effect of the emissions that they are making into the atmosphere. What can we do? One of the things was what Vivek said. Suppose we begin to use even biodegradable carry bags, तो वो भी एक help हो सकता है. Carry bag use ही ना करो. Have your own bags. There was a time long ago when I remember in my childhood when the concept of a plastic carry bag was not there at all. जितने लोग थे वो अपने थैले लेके जाते थे और वो उसको लेके ही काम करते, उसी से काम चल जाया करता. Now, other area is कि maybe we can go for more environment friendly vehicles. We can reduce food loss and waste. छोटी छोटी चीजें हैं, but if everybody does it, it has some impact. दूसरा होता है कि टू पुल आउट कार्बन फ्रॉम नेचर. हाउ डू वी डू दिस? जो कार्बन हमने नेचर के अंदर एमिट किया है, हाउ डू वी पुल इट आउट? Now, the way to pull it out, one way, of course, is through forestation. अगर आप trees plant करते हैं, तो इन trees के जो the trunks of the trees, the branches of the trees, the roots of the trees, all these things, they suck out carbon. So that helps. By deploying emerging technologies such as direct air capture, which takes carbon out of the air and stores it in geological formations underground. ये भी एक नई technique है. But the main point to remember here is all these things are costly and all companies do not actually support this to the extent that they should. But this is the basic concept. So here I have put in a bit about Indian corporates with decarbonization targets. ये जो हमने अभी बात की about decarbonization, some of our companies are actually taking the initiative here and doing something. Some are saying कि we've become carbon neutral. मतलब जितने हम लोगों ने emit किया है कार्बन, उतना ही कार्बन हम लोग एटमॉस्फेयर से निकाल भी लेंगे. एंड इन दैट वे हम लोग न्यूट्रल हो जाएंगे. अगर हमारे तरफ से माइनस कुछ है तो एक प्लस भी होगा. इसमें वेदांता है, आदित्य बिरला ग्रुप है. दीज आर ऑल माइनिंग कंपनीज है ना, सो दीज हैव अ बिग रोल. JSW स्टील, अडानी ट्रांसमिशन, महिंद्रा एंड महिंद्रा, Dalmia Cement. Cement is one of the most polluting industries. And Reliance Industries has set a target of net zero by 2035. इसमें those companies which are in the infrastructure sector, whether it is steel, cement, energy, इनमें coal, ये वाला area में the problems will be more. And it is for these companies to take the initiative and do something. So what is decarbonization? Reduction or elimination of carbon dioxide emissions from a process such as manufacturing or the production of energy. This is, इस चीज को सिर्फ याद रखिए यहाँ पर. क्या benefits हो सकता है by following this PPP policy? So, improved brand reputation. जो customers आपके हैं वो पारखी हैं. They are looking at what you are doing. In these days of social media, you have in these days of social media, you have like everything that you do is made available on different parts of the social media. So people get to know about what is happening. This is already there. And people know your role. So if you do something good, आपकी reputation उससे अच्छी हो सकती है. If your reputation is good, you will also be able to attract talented people. And people who have already come to your company, you will be able to retain them. This is the benefit. So the triple bottom line basically means that people, including customers, the community, employees, are considered just as important as the profit and environmental impact. Having a strategy designed to improve employee outcomes as well as the wider society can be a great way to attract and retain talent, particularly in a competitive market. So ये एक काफी बड़ा फायदा इसमें हो जाता है हम डूइंग। दूसरा इसमें फायदा है कि जो कंप्लायंस रिस्क क्या होता है कि इफ यू डू नॉट कंप्लाई विद द इन्वायरमेंटल लॉज, विद द एंटी पोल्यूशन लॉज, देन ह्यूज फाइन्स कैन बी इम्पोज्ड ऑन योर कंपनी। और उतने फाइन्स अगर इम्पोज हो गए आपकी कंपनी में तो यू विल नो लॉन्गर रिमेन प्रॉफिटेबल। तो इफ यू आर सेंसिटिव टू द एनवायरनमेंट, अगर ये ट्रिपल पी आपके पॉलिसी का एक पार्ट है, then in that case it will minimize your risk of violating these laws. So you will automatically be compliant. Compliant simply means you are following the laws, you are following the guidelines, the rules which are there. So it helps. कहीं कहीं पे it may not even be required, हो सकता है स्टैट्यूटरी ना हो, लेकिन अगर एक अच्छी आदत आप डाल लेते हैं और आपकी कंपनी जो है ऐसी मतलब इस तरह का उसका एक्टिविटीज रहता है विच इज सेंसिटिव टू द एनवायरनमेंट, अल्टीमेटली दिस विल हेल्प यू टू रिमेन कंप्लायंट। दूसरा है इट गिव्स यू बेटर इन्वेस्टमेंट अपॉर्चुनिटीज। और अगर आप सही माने में ये सब कर रहे हैं, दिस इंटायर फोकसिंग ऑन दीज थ्री एरियाज, it means that you are transparent and accountable, and it can help to improve investment opportunities and make a clearer, more impactful business case for prospective investors or business partners. मतलब जो लोग आपके जो प्रोस्पेक्टिव इन्वेस्टर्स हैं, फ्यूचर इन्वेस्टर्स हैं, जो अभी उन्होंने किया नहीं है बट दे आर प्लानिंग टू इन्वेस्ट, these people will find that your company is more attractive as an investment destination. They will say कि हाँ इस कंपनी में इन्वेस्ट करना चाहिए because it is doing the right things, because it is sensitive to the people, it is sensitive to the environment, to the planet, not just to profits. प्रॉफिट वाला इसका ये मतलब नहीं है कि we do these things at the cost of profit. प्लीज इस चीज को प्लीज मन में रखिएगा। इफ यू बिकम अनप्रॉफिटेबल तो कुछ दिन के बाद आपकी कंपनी खुद ब खुद बंद हो जाएगी। दिस होल थिंग विल बिकम absolutely meaningless. You have to remain profitable. While remaining profitable, you do these things. And in this way, you try to do something for everyone. So that is the point here, कि prosperity for all. इसका ये भी मतलब होता है कि आप जो रॉ मटेरियल्स यूज करते हैं, जो आपके सप्लाई चेन्स है, उस पर भी आप थोड़ा ध्यान दीजिए कि जो जहां से आप मटेरियल्स ले रहे हैं अपना, are those people sensitive to the environment? Are they using, for example, इसका सबसे जो वेल पब्लिसाइज्ड केसेस होता है कि जो हमारे बड़े वेस्टर्न कंपनीज हैं लाइक नाइकी यूज्ड टू गेट सम ऑफ देयर मटेरियल फ्रॉम बांग्लादेश। लेटर ऑन दे फाउंड दैट यहाँ पे चाइल्ड लेबर यूज किया जा रहा है। दिस इज अ ओल्ड थिंग, आजकल ये शायद ठीक हो गया है, आई होप एटलीस्ट इट्स ओके नाउ, बट because of that, what happened was they stopped actually buying from those people. So by taking a stand on this whole concept of being friendly to the people and the environment, you can make a difference by forcing your suppliers who need your business to also comply. बिकॉज वो देखेंगे कि भाई हमारा जो सबसे बड़ा क्लाइंट है वो इंसिस्ट कर रहा है कि आई शुड कंप्लाई विद दीज एनवायरमेंटल गाइडलाइंस, अगर ये हम नहीं करेंगे तो फिर ये हमसे खरीदना बंद कर देंगे, एंड इफ दैट हैपेंस इट विल बी बैड फॉर अस, इसलिए कर लो। सो दीज आर अदर एस्पेक्ट्स हियर विच वी कैन थिंक ऑफ, एंड इसके साथ ही वी कम टू द एंड ऑफ दिस पर्टिकुलर यूनिट। From this point, we will start off with the next unit, which just give me a moment to. So our new unit will be Unit 3, Fundamental Principles. Before I start, I'll just get myself a glass of water and then we'll continue. So Vivek and Deepti, are you here? Both of you?
Sir, I'm little bit busy.
Okay. Deepti?
No, no, sorry.
Responding. Okay, do you want some time? 5 minutes?
Yes, sir.
Then in that case, Deepti, are you here?
Yes, sir.
Okay, fine. I thought you. So in that case, I'll go with this a little slowly. Vivek will join in a few minutes.
Sure.
So we just look at some of the fundamental principles here. One is this thing called the incremental concept. Other is the time perspective. Then there is opportunity cost. Then we have discounting. This is something which we had already looked at. We have something known as the equi-marginal principle. So these are considered to be some basic principles. To have at least some idea about these things, what these are. Now, when we come to this concept of incremental cost, what does incremental mean? Deepti, any thoughts on this?
No, sir.
Okay, so you may have heard of this. Somebody has a salary, is working in a government organization. He gets an increment every year.
Yes, sir.
Haven't
There's
heard
a
of this?
salary increase. Yes, sir.
So the salary increases by a small amount.
Small
We
amount.
call that an increment. So basically, an increment is like a small increase. The concept is incremental means it doesn't mean that it is going to increase manyfold in a big way. It's a small increase. Okay. Now, incremental cost. This is a well-known concept in managerial economics, and it has a relevance to the strategy of firms. Now, this is once again related to the concepts of marginal cost and marginal revenues in economic theory. All these are, you'll understand it, all these things are basically incremental. The two major concepts here are incremental cost and incremental revenue. Okay. How does this work? Incremental cost denotes the change in total cost. What is the extra cost to the company in terms of raw material, labor, and overheads when a decision is taken? Suppose you take a certain decision, and that decision is going to lead to a cost. Now, your company is already bearing a certain amount of cost. Let's say that your total cost is 100. And now you make certain changes. You let's say you decide to pay more to certain categories of staff. That will increase the cost. Incremental cost basically means I look at the amount of increase, that extra amount.
The
That
additional
extra.
cost.
Yes, Deepti.
Sir, the additional cost which prior is not present in our product or service.
Yes. So that is like the marginal cost, the extra.
Yes,
Now,
sir.
similarly, incremental revenue denotes the change in the total revenue. I was 100, I increased to 110. The 10 is the incremental revenue. So what is the extra revenue from sale of the additional products? This will result in an increase in the total revenue. And that extra revenue that you get, that is your incremental part. Now, why is this important? You'll see this here. So incremental cost is change in total cost, whereas incremental revenue is change in total revenue, resulting from a decision of the firm. Now, under what circumstances will a decision be clearly profitable? One, it increases the revenue more than the costs. Simple. Both are increasing. The costs are increasing, the revenue is increasing. But one, the revenue is increasing more than the cost. So at the end of the day, you are getting more. I take my extra revenue, I reduce from that the extra cost. I still have a positive figure. So I'm gaining something. Number two, it decreases some cost to a greater extent than it increases others. So I'm going for a cost cutting thing. And there I find that I need to also increase some costs somewhere. So I increase costs somewhere, but I am able to decrease costs more than the amount of the increase. So at the end of the day, my total costs have actually come down. Then it increases some revenues more than it decreases others. Now I take a decision. Let's say that I have a number of products. Now I decide to promote one product more, because of which my sales in that product increase. But since now I'm focusing on this one product, let's say the revenue from the other products, which I'm now ignoring, that comes down. So basically, some revenues have gone up as a result of my decision, and some revenues have gone down. But the revenue that has gone up, the increase in revenue is more than the decrease. So even that will result in a increase in your profit. And then, of course, it reduces costs more than revenues. Both, let's say, go down. The costs also go down, the revenues also go down, but the costs go down by more. Revenue goes down by less. Even in that case, you will find that you have something extra with you. So if your decision takes care of one of these things, then that decision is a profitable one and you can take it. That's why we say that this incremental concept thing is something which is important for strategy also. So whenever a strategic decision is made, you look at it from this point of view. Let's say that some businessmen hold that the view to make an overall profit, they must make a profit on every job. So this is a obsolete view now. Every job has to be profitable. The result is that they refuse orders that do not cover full costs plus a provision for profit. So this will lead to rejection of an order which prevents short-run profit. So here's an example. Let's say that for a particular business, the labor costs are 3,000, raw materials are 4,000, overheads are 3,600, selling and administration expenses are 1,400. The full cost is 12,000. Incremental revenue from the order is 10,000. So the apparent loss is 2,000. If you just look at it like this, it appears that the apparent loss is 2,000. Now, suppose the unit has idle capacity. It is not producing as much as it can. What will be the result of this? The incremental cost will actually be less. So how do we figure that? See, the labor 2,000 is the additional amount of labor. Raw materials, 4,000, okay. Overheads is actually increasing only by 1,000. The other 2,600 is already there. The company is already spending that money. Selling and administrative expenses are actually not increasing at all because that is already there. Your company is existing. You already have these people in place. Your employees are there who are doing the selling and the administration part. So if you take on a new order, it's not as if the entire expenses are being borne by that order. So the actual incremental cost which comes is 7,000. But as a result of this, the revenue that you earn by selling those goods or fulfilling the order is 10,000. So your actual profit is 3,000. What these two tables actually show you is that if you focus on the incremental part, you will end up with a more informed decision than if you focus just on the actuals. So if I make this calculation, the first box, in isolation, as if that the entire resources of the company are actually going into this job, then it appears that this order is not so profitable. But the moment I begin to look at it in a holistic way, and in an overall way, I begin to get a better idea about it. Is it clear, Dipti, this point?
Yes, sir.
Now, just to explain this, so labor was not being utilized fully. So the cost of additional labor goes down. Overheads, only a small increase in items like power, spares, lubricants, etc. Selling expenses, no change as the company is already promoting the same product. So if it wants to sell more, it gets a new order for making more of those products. It doesn't really add anything extra. Let's take this one. It decreases some costs to a greater extent than it increases others. So let's say that selling expenses, advertisements is 1 lakh, sales is 10 lakhs. Now, selling expenses reduced to 60,000. Let's say I reduce my selling expenses, increase incentive to dealers by 30,000. So what I'm doing is I am decreasing my selling expenses by 40,000 from 1 lakh to 60. But out of that 40 which I have got, I am giving 30,000 as an incentive to dealers. So my bet is that instead of focusing on advertising and trying to get people to buy my products, let me incentivize the dealer from my advertising budget, and the dealer will promote my goods. Customers who come there, the dealer will be the person to tell them that, look, you should buy this company's goods because these are good. Why is the dealer doing this? Because if the dealer gets more business, gets me more business, they get an incentive for the sales that they have. So in this particular case, this is an additional expenditure. I have increased it. It was 0 before, I have made it 30,000. But I have decreased the advertising expenditure from 1 lakh to 60. Therefore, even if my sales remain at, let's say, 10 lakhs, I still manage to earn some profit. Now you take the other one. Increases some revenues to a greater extent than it decreases others. Suppose a company is producing and selling 2 products, soap and detergents. Company can increase the advertising on soaps and reduce advertising costs on detergents. As a result of this, the sales of soap goes up by rupees 5 lakhs, but the sales of detergent goes down by rupees 4 lakhs. If this is the sort of thing which happens, then what happens is that some revenues have increased, some revenues have decreased. But the increases are more than the decreases. And since that is the case, you will end up making more money. So incremental cost of ads on soap has gone up, but the incremental revenues have increased 2 rupees 5 lakhs. Incremental cost of ads on detergents have gone down, but incremental revenues declined by only 4 lakhs. So the company ends up with a profit of 1 lakh. So essentially, we just have to see both sides, the costs and the revenues, or where in the same head, within revenues, if there is a decrease in one item and an increase in the other item, as long as the increases are more than the decreases, we are okay. So we look at the incremental component and of both, and then we try to figure out which is more. And if the increases are more in the, what you're getting is more, what you're giving up is less, you're good. Next concept is something which we had touched earlier. So this will be much more easy. So the time perspective concept states that the decision maker must give due consideration both to the short run and the long run effects of his decisions. That means that certain things, certain decisions will have an impact on the short run. But for certain decisions to have an impact on you, to be beneficial for you, you have to think in terms of the long run effects. What is the impact of the short run and long effects on decisions, on revenues as well as costs? So in the short period, the firm can change its output without changing its size. The output of the industry is therefore fixed because the firms cannot change the size of operation and they can vary only variable factors. Now, what this basically means is, this is actually, since the concept is taken from economics, now the way the whole thing has been written is typical of an economics textbook. So what he is saying is that the firm can change its output without changing its size. What does that mean? Basically, the firm has already invested in machinery. It has a certain capacity. Now, if the full capacity is not being utilized, then what the company can do is, it can increase its capacity if it gets the orders for it. If it does that, its output will change. Its output will increase. And this can happen immediately. So I don't have to invest anything in machines. I don't have to increase my capacity. I just have to ensure that I am making more use of the potential that I already have. If I can do this, this can happen in the short period. So for the industry as a whole, if you look at the industry as a whole, all the units like yours which are operating in the same industry, let's say that all the paint factories, in the short run, they can increase the output without actually changing the size of the operation. Because in that case, they just have to get orders, they just have to basically increase the variable costs, the raw material costs, the overhead costs, only that will increase. As a result of that, they will end up with an increased output. In the long period, the firm can change its output only by changing its size. The output of the industry can also increase because all firms can increase their output. Basically, if you want the output to go beyond capacity, then you will have to bring in more capacity. So that will take time. The whole concept here is that if you make an investment, then you have to be clear at the time of taking a decision when that money is going to come back to you. Remember when we did the present value exercise, we were looking at when the cash flows will come. And in some cases, we said that it is going to come in a 10-year period. But in all our examples, we were assuming that the first thing happens after 1 year. The first cash flow comes after 1 year itself. Now, in a time perspective thing, it may mean that it will take me time to actually put in the new capacity to produce, to get new orders, to produce a new range of goods. So it is possible that it will take more time before the cash flows actually begin to come in. So there is a time perspective in taking these decisions. Short run. Suppose a firm having a temporary idle capacity. Matlab, the capacity is there, it is not being used. Received an order of 10,000 units of its product. Customer is willing to pay only rupees 4 per unit of rupees 40,000 for the whole lot, but no more. So basically what is happening is customer is paying less. The short run incremental cost, ignoring the fixed cost, is only rupees 3. Okay. Therefore, the contribution to overhead and profit is rupees 1 per unit. कंपनी के पास कैपेसिटी पहले से थी. So the thing is, इसके लिए इसको कुछ करना नहीं पड़ा. They got an order. They already have the machines. They already have the labor. They already have every other thing that they require. The whole administrative and selling machinery is in place. इनको जो raw material खरीदना था, वही खरीदना है. The variable cost. Variable cost अगर ये order हम ले लेते हैं, तो per unit I am getting 4 rupees. I can sell at 4 rupees per unit. लेकिन हमारा वेरिएबल कॉस्ट बढ़ रहा है ओनली बाय 3 रुपीज पर यूनिट. जो एक्स्ट्रा रॉ मटेरियल्स मुझे लगेंगे इस ऑर्डर को फुलफिल करने में, उसमें हमारा कॉस्ट 3 रुपये है. बट माय इंक्रीमेंटल कॉस्ट इज गोइंग अप बाय 4. दिस इज अ प्रॉफिटेबल थिंग इन द शॉर्ट रन. प्लीज नोट दिस. शॉर्ट रन में दिस इज नॉट द सेम एज द अर्लियर एग्जाम्पल. In the short run, this appears to be a good idea. Normally, I would not be selling at 4 rupees. I would be selling at a higher price. हमारा capacity idle था. Therefore, I decided कि ठीक है, कम में बेच देते हैं. Because इसमें we will get a short-term profit. Now, if the firm executes this order, अगर ये decision आपने ले लिया, it will have to face the following repercussion in the long run. इसका impact क्या है? It may not be able to take up business with higher contributions in the long run. Image of the firm may be spoilt in the business community because business community ये कहेगी कि normally आप जो है इसी जो हम आपके जो present customers हैं, you are charging us 5 rupees per unit. This new order that you have got, those people have bargained with you and they are taking 4 rupees from you. वो आपके पक्के कस्टमर है भी नहीं. वो आए आपके पास, मौके का फायदा उठाया, आपसे कम में ले रहे हैं. तो अगर if you are selling it at that cost to them, 4 रुपए आप उनको बेच रहे हैं, you sell it at the same cost to me also. Why should we pay more? Other customers will demand a lower price. Long run effects क्या होगा? The long run effects of pricing below full cost may be more than offset any short term gain. हो सकता है इसके चलते लॉन्ग टर्म में आपको जो अपनी कीमतें घटानी पड़ेगी, वो लॉस कहीं ज्यादा होगा compared to the gain which you are getting now. Point which we are making here is टाइम पर्सपेक्टिव को देख के डिसीजंस आपको लेना है. देयर इज अ शॉर्ट रन पर्सपेक्टिव, देयर इज अ लॉन्ग रन पर्सपेक्टिव. शॉर्ट रन में इट मे यू मे फील दैट दिस इज अ गुड डिसीजन, लेकिन अगर इसको हम थोड़ा सा दूर तक सोचते हैं, सोच को अपनी दूर ले जाते हैं, वी बिगिन टू थिंक अबाउट व्हाट विल बी द रिजल्ट ऑफ दिस डिसीजन इन द लॉन्ग रन, देन इट विल बी डिफरेंट. थिंग्स कैन चेंज. हो सकता है कुछ और डिसीजन यहां पर हो जाए. ओके. Then we come to the other concept here, the opportunity cost concept. Opportunity cost concept is a very, it will be very easy to understand and it is a very important part. देखिए, रिसोर्सेज हमेशा कम होते हैं आपके पास. विवेक, आप जैसे अभी जो भी काम कर रहे हैं, आपको ऐसा लगता होगा कि मेरे पास में अगर और कैपिटल होता तो शायद हम इससे ज्यादा बेहतर कुछ कर सकते थे। जो कैपिटल आपके पास में है उसकी अपनी सीमाएं हैं, एंड यू आर वर्किंग विद इन दोज लिमिट्स। हम सभी कमोडिटी नहीं बना सकते। अगर हम कुछ कमोडिटीज बनाते हैं, देन वी हैव टू डिसाइड नॉट टू प्रोड्यूस सम अदर कमोडिटीज। यू कैनॉट डू एवरीथिंग। Calculation of opportunity costs involves the measurement of sacrifices. मतलब कि अगर I have two, I can produce A, I can produce B. I cannot produce both. इतने हमारे पास रिसोर्सेज नहीं है कि अब A भी बनाए और B भी बनाए। If I choose to make A, I have to sacrifice B. If I choose to make B, I have to sacrifice A. और ये जो sacrifice आपने किया, दिस इज द अपॉर्चुनिटी कॉस्ट। माने आपने एक अपॉर्चुनिटी लिया टू गो फॉर ए, बट द कॉस्ट ऑफ द अपॉर्चुनिटी इज टू सैक्रिफाइस बी। देखिए, आपके पास अगर बेशुमार दौलत होता, यू हैड ऑल द रिसोर्सेज इन द वर्ल्ड, तो आप दोनों ही बनाते, ए भी करते बी भी करते। लेकिन आपके पास लिमिट्स हैं, तो सिंस यू हैव लिमिट्स, what can you do? You will now have to choose between A and B. If you choose A, you sacrifice B. What is the cost of choosing A? Sacrificing B. Sacrifices may be monetary or real. So the opportunity cost is termed as the cost of the sacrificed alternative. जो भी आप B को नहीं चुन के आपने जो लॉस, जो एक पोटेंशियल प्रॉफिट था जो आपने खोया, that is your sacrifice. So opportunity cost is the cost of the sacrifice of the best alternative foregone. Foregone means which you have left in the production of a good or service. Therefore, if they are used to produce one thing, they have to be withdrawn from other uses. एक चीज को आप प्रोड्यूस करने के लिए दूसरे वाले से you will have to pull out. It is the opportunity missed or alternative foregone in having one thing rather than the other. एक चीज बजाय इसके कि दूसरी चीज को हम रखें, और इन पुटिंग अ फैक्टर ऑफ प्रोडक्शन कैपिटल टू वन यूज इंस्टेड ऑफ द अदर। आपके पास जो फैक्टर्स ऑफ प्रोडक्शन आपके पास क्या होता है? कैपिटल है, लेबर है, दीज आर योर फैक्टर्स। एंटरप्रेन्योरशिप है। नाउ ऑल दीज थिंग्स यू आर यूजिंग फॉर प्रोड्यूसिंग वन पर्टिकुलर थिंग, एंड द मोमेंट यू आर डूइंग दिस, you are foregoing the opportunity to produce the other thing. अगर आपका ये सही है कॉल, फिर तो ठीक है, but you have still sacrificed the other alternative. Okay, so this is one. इसमें एग्जांपल्स हम लोग सिंपल वेज में ले सकते हैं। आपके पास जमीन है फॉर wheat growing. Now, what is the cost of growing wheat? ऑप्शन था मेरे पास टू ग्रो राइस। लेट्स से राइस छोड़ के मैंने अगर वीट ग्रो किया, आई हैव लॉस्ट द अपॉर्चुनिटी ऑफ ग्रोइंग राइस। दैट इज माय अपॉर्चुनिटी कॉस्ट। द रियल कॉस्ट ऑफ द लेबरर इज व्हाट ही कुड गेट इन सम ऑल्टरनेटिव एम्प्लॉयमेंट। अगर आप किसी दो आपके पास ऑप्शंस है एम्प्लॉयमेंट के, you choose one, आपका cost is the one which you left. जो second best आपके हिसाब से था, that is the cost. Okay. The cost of capital to the capitalist. देखिए हर जगह ये आएगा. The cost of capital to the capitalist is the elsewhere. ऐसे सपोज करो कि the capitalist takes the capital and he invests in a particular project. उस प्रोजेक्ट से उसको रिटर्न मिलता है 10%। अगर वो कहीं और करता और अगर उसको उस वो वाले में 10 से ज्यादा मिल सकता था, then he is foregoing that by accepting this. So the cost of the capital to him is the amount of interest he could earn in the other alternative. सो इस चीज को ऑलवेज याद रखिए कि अपॉर्चुनिटी कॉस्ट में द कॉस्ट ऑफ द अदर ऑल्टरनेटिव, सी दिस बिकम्स वेरी सिंपल टू अंडरस्टैंड इफ वी क्वांटिफाई इट, एंड इन सम प्लेसेस इट कैन बी वेरी इजीली क्वांटिफाइड. आपके पास में दो इन्वेस्टमेंट एवेन्यूज हैं, एक में 10% मिल रहा है, एक में 8% मिलता है, तो यू चूज 10. योर अपॉर्चुनिटी कॉस्ट इज 8. जो 8% था उसको छोड़ के हमने 10 किया, तो ठीक है, जो भी हमारा कॉस्ट था उससे बेटर मेरा चॉइस है, तो आई एम ओके. बट यू हैव, दैट इज द कॉस्ट फॉर यू. If a capitalist chooses one project in place of another, जो दूसरा वाला प्रोजेक्ट जितना अर्निंग इसको दे सकता था, दैट इज द कॉस्ट फॉर द कैपिटलिस्ट. एटलीस्ट दैट मच होगा. व्हाई इज दिस इंपॉर्टेंट? वो जो डिस्काउंटिंग हम करते हैं, दैट डिस्काउंटिंग इज क्वाइट ऑफन डन एट अपॉर्चुनिटी कॉस्ट. कि जो दूसरा ऑप्शन मेरे पास में था, उसी को हम अपना डिस्काउंटिंग फैक्टर लेके चलते हैं. डिस्काउंटिंग कॉन्सेप्ट में we had already discussed this in present value, so ये यहाँ पे समझना ये easy होगा कि since the value of a rupee receivable in the future is less than the value of the rupee in hand, all future receivables have to be discounted to a certain their present value. इसी चीज को हमने वो एग्जांपल्स के थ्रू भी सीखा था उसमें, कि जो रुपी हमें फ्यूचर में मिलना है उसका वैल्यू उस रुपी से कम है जो ऑलरेडी मेरे हाथ में है. So when evaluating the profitability of investments, the concept of net present value is helpful. और जब हम net present value निकालते हैं, what do? We discount the cash flows. Net present value is a decision-making tool for the CEO, as it allows the CEO to assess the profitability of alternative investments using the concept of present value. कि अगर हम अपने अदर जो मेरे पास में इन्वेस्टमेंट अपॉर्चुनिटीज हैं, जो अदर प्रोजेक्ट्स हैं जिसमें हम पैसे लगा सकते हैं, वो प्रोजेक्ट्स में हमें जो फायदा होता over a period of time, if we are able to discount all those cash flows to their present value, then that is going to give me an idea about which is the better one for me. इसके बाद the next one is the equi-marginal concept. Equi-marginal concept का क्या है कि it states that an input, माने जो आप लगा रहे हैं अपने तरफ से, it can be capital, it can be labor, कुछ भी जो resources आप लगा रहे हैं, it should be allocated so that the value added by the last unit is the same in all cases. थोड़ा abstract लग रहा होगा सुनने में ये, but we can understand this through an example. A firm has 100 units of labor at its disposal. आपके पास में इतने, सपोज इसको हम क्वांटिफाई करते हैं सिंप्लीफाई करने के लिए. You have 100 units of labor at your disposal. और आपके पास में 5 एक्टिविटीज हैं जो आप करते हैं. यू आर ऑलरेडी डूइंग दिस. ये अपॉर्चुनिटी कॉस्ट नहीं है, यू आर ऑलरेडी डूइंग ABCD&D. जो रिसोर्सेज हैं आपके पास, यू आर यूजिंग देम टू फॉर दीज 5 एक्टिविटीज. Now the firm can increase any one of these activities by employing more labor, but only at the cost sacrifice of other activities. अगर आप A में ज्यादा करेंगे तो B में शायद कम करना पड़ेगा. Simple opportunity cost principle. So suppose Maruti recruits 100 engineers. It is producing 4 types of vehicles. How should Maruti deploy these engineers? कैसे करके उनको लगाएगा? Suppose it deploys them equally. मारुति क्या करती है, कहती है कि भाई 100 इंजीनियर आ गए, वी डिप्लॉय देम इक्वली, 25-25 हम लगा देते हैं ऑन ऑल द 4 टाइप्स ऑफ व्हीकल्स व्हिच वी आर प्रोड्यूसिंग. द नंबर ऑफ इंजीनियर्स डिप्लॉयड, लेट्स से स्विफ्ट और ऑल्टो, ए स्टार एंड एस क्रॉस, 4 व्हीकल्स हम ले लेते हैं. ये जो हमारे इंजीनियर्स जो आए, इनमें हम 25-25 सब में लगा देते हैं. इंक्रीज इन प्रॉफिट्स जो है वो अनइक्वल होता है. वैल्यू ऐड क्या होता है? स्विफ्ट, द by 100, ऑल्टो इज 100, लेकिन ए स्टार का जो प्रॉफिट इंक्रीज हुआ वो सिर्फ 25 हुआ, और एस क्रॉस का जो प्रॉफिट इंक्रीज किया वो सिर्फ 50 हुआ. Now, the moment this happens, you will now begin to think कि ये जो हमने अपना डिप्लॉयमेंट किया रिसोर्सेस का, इन दिस पर्टिकुलर केस द इंजीनियर्स, वो सही हुआ कि नहीं. तो बराबर किए थे, बट Swift and Alto are giving me much more than A star and S cross. When sales are compared, it is found that A star and S cross are far below Swift and Alto. What will Maruti do? See, this is where the equi-marginal concept will come. इस सिचुएशन को वो ऐसे छोड़ तो नहीं सकती है चीज को ना, बिकॉज इफ इट लीव्स इट लाइक दिस, इसका मतलब है कि दे आर सैक्रिफाइसिंग 100 टू गेट 25. ये अगर ये 25 को यहां लगाए रखेंगे तो भाई इनका प्रॉफिट सिर्फ 25 बढ़ रहा है. अगर इन 25 को इधर कर देते हैं, मे बी दिस विल इंक्रीज मच मोर देन बाय 25. सो दिस इशू इज देयर. सो इट वुड देयरफॉर बी प्रॉफिटेबल टू शिफ्ट लेबर from low marginal value activity to high marginal value activity. Marginal value activity is that incremental value. जैसे वो जो हमने कहा कि मारुति और ऑल्टो और स्विफ्ट में 100 बढ़ गया, that is the marginal value activity. तो वो हाई मार्जिनल वैल्यू एक्टिविटी था. ऑल्टो इसमें एस क्रॉस में और ए स्टार में 25 और 50 सिर्फ बढ़ा, तो यू कैन कंसिडर दैट द लो मार्जिनल वैल्यू एक्टिविटी. और इसके चलते अब क्या होगा कि द वैल्यू ऑफ द मार्जिनल प्रोडक्ट ऑफ लेबर इन स्विफ्ट एंड ऑल्टो इज 100, while that in A star and S cross is 25 and 50. Then it is profitable to shift engineers from A star and S cross to Swift and Alto. तो आपको you will be forced to do this, because ये आपके मन में हमेशा रहेगा कि इनका जो अपॉर्चुनिटी कॉस्ट है इसमें रखने का, वो ज्यादा है गेन से. जो हमें मिल रहा है इसमें डाल के, उससे ज्यादा हम लूज कर रहे हैं. सो इफ द मार्जिनल वैल्यू ऑफ एनी ऑफ द व्हीकल्स इज लेस, इन चारों में से अगर आप उसमें एक्स्ट्रा रिसोर्सेज डालते हैं, और जो उसमें एक्स्ट्रा इंक्रीमेंटल वैल्यू जो आपको मिलता है, जो एक्स्ट्रा मिलता है, अगर किसी में भी कम है, तो आपको कुछ ऐसा करना पड़ेगा कि बराबर हो जाए. एंड दैट इज द कॉन्सेप्ट ऑफ इक्वी मार्जिनल, कि जो भी आपको एक्स्ट्रा मिले, दैट इंक्रीमेंटल पार्ट, इट हैज टू बी इक्वल. अगर वो नहीं होगा तो रिसोर्सेज को आप डाइवर्ट कर देंगे. दैट इज द बेसिक प्रिंसिपल हियर. Over a period of time, investments will only be made in activities that have the same marginal value. The optimum is reached when the values of the marginal product is equal for all activities. जब तक आप कोई इस वे में डिप्लॉय नहीं करेंगे कि सबका बराबर हो. लेट्स से कि हम ऑल्टो और एस क्रॉस को इग्नोर नहीं करना चाहते. What we can do is deploy less engineers in A star and S cross and more engineers in Swift and Alto. तब क्या होगा कि हमारा रिसोर्सेज का जो बंटवारा होगा वो बेटर होगा in terms of the value that we are getting back. इसके बाद we look again at the concept of time value of money. Time value of money को we had touched in the previous unit also. इसको फिर से we will just go through this again. Suppose you are asked to deliver a consignment of goods from Varanasi to Chennai to an individual who lives there. The important point is that you deliver the goods in person. आपको खुद पहुंचाना है. You are offered 1 lakh to do the job. 50,000 will be paid before the job. 50,000 will be paid after 6 months. This is ये deal आपको मिला. What is the amount that you received for doing the job? ये क्वेश्चन पूछने का मकसद क्या है? आपको 1 लाख प्रेजेंट वैल्यू टर्म्स में मिला क्या? See, why I am asking this question to you is, You get 50,000 today. 50,000 you will get after 6 months. You have जो आपको कंसाइन आपका क्या असाइनमेंट है कि हम माल को वाराणसी से चेन्नई पहुंचा दें, उसको खुद लेके हमको जाना है। पैसे आई वॉज टोल्ड कि यू विल गेट 1 लाख, 1 लाख रुपए मिलेगा इस काम के लिए, लेकिन आई एम गेटिंग 50,000 immediately and I am getting 50,000 after 6 months. The question is, am I getting 50,000, 1 lakh total or not? अगर आप सिंपल वैल्यू टर्म्स में देखेंगे, करंट वैल्यू टर्म्स में, तो हाँ आपको 1 लाख मिलेगा। वी आर गेटिंग,
Sir, in monetary terms, we are getting the money, but the value of the money will not be same as at present and at in comparison to future days.
exactly. So the moment you apply this time value principle and you begin to look at this from a present value angle, immediately you begin to see कि नहीं, ये डील जो है इसमें हमें 1 लाख तो मिल नहीं रहा है, कम मिल रहा है। So the basic principle of the time value thing is that a rupee today is more than a rupee received in future. Why? The reason is that money received today can be used to earn more money. अगर मेरे हाथ में आ जाता, we could have invested it, we could have used it in some way to earn something for ourselves. So when you receive money in the future, you do not get the opportunity to do this. Suppose you have rupees 1 lakh and you do not invest it, it stays in your safe for 1 year. What is the value of the amount after 1 year? हो गया ना आपका, as compared with this. ये हमने आपको पिछली बार भी दिखाया था, just as a revision, just have a look at this thing again, so that फिर से वो आपके मन में आ जाए कि आपको आज 1 लाख रुपए मिलता है, रेट ऑफ इंटरेस्ट इज 10%, 1 साल में 10,000 का इंटरेस्ट कमाया जाता है, यू गेट 1,10,000, दिस इज द फ्यूचर वैल्यू। फ्यूचर वैल्यू फैक्टर इसमें क्या आया? 1.10, 1 plus 0.10 is 1.10. We are multiplying that with 1 lakh. We are getting 1,10,000. Date of receipt 1 year from today हमें मिलता है 1 लाख. Rate of interest is 10%. आज के दिन में उसका वैल्यू कितना है? It is 90,909. कैसे ये हो गया? We take 1 lakh. This time we divide by 1.10 to get its present value. ये वाला जो कॉन्सेप्ट है प्रेजेंट वैल्यू का, this becomes critical whenever we are analyzing any proposal that we have. So इसको always याद रखना है, इस पर्टिकुलर चीज को। कंपाउंड इंटरेस्ट, और ये आप लोग को पता ही होगा, दिस नथिंग न्यू, is interest on a loan or deposit calculated based on the initial principal amount and the interest accumulated over previous periods. So in this example, a loan is given at 10% interest for 3 years. Assuming that there is no repayment, what will be the interest at the end of 3 years? So let's say on 1st January 21, the loan is given at 10% simple interest. 10 लाख रुपए, 1 लाख रुपए, ये बैलेंस 1 लाख है। 31 दिसंबर 21 को इंटरेस्ट इसमें 10,000 लग गया, 10% सिंपल इंटरेस्ट था, द बैलेंस बिकम्स 1,10,000। उसके बाद आफ्टर अनदर 1 ईयर फिर से 10,000 लगा, सिंपल इंटरेस्ट था, तो हम इंटरेस्ट पर इंटरेस्ट नहीं लगा सकते, तो नेक्स्ट टाइम भी इंटरेस्ट मेरा 10,000 ही होगा। सो इट बिकम्स 120। थर्ड ईयर अगेन आई एड 10,000 इंटरेस्ट, एट द एंड ऑफ इट ऑल उसका फ्यूचर वैल्यू आता है 1,30,000। तो जो भी हमने लोन लिया था, द अमाउंट रीपेबल इज 1,30,000। व्हाई? बिकॉज इट वाज सिंपल इंटरेस्ट। ओके, इस तरह का इंटरेस्ट बैंक्स कब करती है? There is one particular type of loan in which banks use this. वो इंटरेस्ट पे इंटरेस्ट चार्ज नहीं करती है, वो एक फिक्स कर दी, जो भी प्रिंसिपल पर अमाउंट आया रेट के हिसाब से, उसी अमाउंट को हर साल वो आपके खाते में डेबिट करते जाएंगे। What loan is that? Deepti, this might become important for you in some time.
Yes.
कौन सा लोन है ये? चलो 5 सेकंड और।
Sir, can you repeat the question, please?
Which one?
The question.
Question.
Network, हाँ, network चला गया.
My question is, what ये एक एग्जाम्पल है एक सिंपल इंटरेस्ट वाले लोन का, जिसका वर्किंग इस तरह से है कि 1 लाख रुपए दिए गए 10%, हर साल इसमें 10-10 हजार रुपए इंटरेस्ट डेबिट करता है, बैंक करती गई, और इसका आउटस्टैंडिंग बैलेंस आफ्टर 3 years becomes 1,30,000. Question is, what type of loan does the bank give in which this principle is used of simple interest?
Maybe I am not correct, but educational loan did follow this.
Yes, exactly. Up till the time or your course is complete, there will be certain terms and conditions, but up till your course is actually complete. Suppose कीजिए you are doing an MBA or any course, 2 year course. 2 साल तक बैंक सिंपल इंटरेस्ट ही लगाएगी उस लोन. 2 सालों के बाद they will give you a certain amount of time to get a job so that you can begin repayment. उसके बाद से कंपाउंड इंटरेस्ट लगने लगेगी. कंपाउंड इंटरेस्ट में क्या होगा कि you will begin to add the interest amount to the principal for calculation of future interest. जैसे ये 1 लाख बैलेंस था पहला ईयर में, फर्स्ट ईयर में 10,000 लगा, बैलेंस हो गया 1,10. सेकेंड ईयर में आई विल चार्ज माई इंटरेस्ट ऑन 1,10,000. सो आई विल चार्ज 11,000 एज इंटरेस्ट. अब मेरा बैलेंस हो गया 121. तीसरे साल आई विल चार्ज 10% on 1,21,000. Therefore, the interest will become 1,21,000. 12,100. As a result of this, the balance will be 1,33,100. यहां पे क्या था? It was 1,30,000. तो कंपाउंडिंग अगर हम करते हैं, it means that your money will grow more. If you have taken a loan, so you are expected to pay back more because of compounding. Compounding का long term effects वो बहुत critical है. जितना सेविंग्स हम लोग करते हैं, दिस इज व्हाई द प्रिंसिपल इन फाइनेंशियल प्लानिंग इज ऑलवेज कि आप जितना जल्दी शुरू करेंगे सेविंग्स करना, उतना ज्यादा फायदा आपको होगा इन द लॉन्ग रन, बिकॉज कंपाउंडिंग पीरियड उसका बढ़ जाता है. इफ यू स्टार्ट एट द एज ऑफ 22 and that money remains in the system, in the banking system for let's say 30 years, then think of the amount of money you will earn. Because the period over which this compound interest works is 30 years. And that compound interest at some point of time will be earning more for you than your capital. ये भी incrementally चलता है, धीरे धीरे होता है, लेकिन धीरे धीरे वो बढ़ता जाएगा. See, look at this. Just look what is happening in 3 years. पहला साल में इंटरेस्ट 1,000 रुपए बढ़ा, दूसरे साल में वो 1,100 बढ़े, तीसरे साल में वो और बढ़ेगा इससे भी ज्यादा. तो every year it will keep on increasing. And if sometimes you can read this book, The Power of Compounding. और The Power of Compounding जो book है, it is not just about money. Basically, it is about getting the right habits. किसी भी चीज को अगर आप इन्वेस्ट करते हैं उसमें, ओवर अ पीरियड ऑफ टाइम इट विल गिव बैक टू यू हायर एंड हायर रिटर्न्स. दिस अप्लाइज टू intangible things also, like increasing your or let's say investing in yourself, in personal development. अगर वो भी आप करते हैं, उस इन्वेस्टमेंट का भी जो रिटर्न्स है, वहां पर भी अगर आप करते रहेंगे इस चीज को, there also the power of compounding works. लेकिन there I am getting distracted. I should not be talking about that in the context of finance, but it is a point which you need to have a look at. इसका exact जो author और book है, next time I'll let you know or I'll send it to you on WhatsApp. कभी मौका लगे, have a look at this book. अच्छा लगेगा आप दोनों को. फ्यूचर वैल्यू का क्या ये था? प्रिंसिपल मल्टीप्लाइड बाय 1 प्लस रेट ऑफ इंटरेस्ट. ओके, what is n into t? The number of compounding periods per year multiplied by number of years. Number of compounding periods per year का इसलिए सिग्निफिकेंस है कि कई बार बैंक्स लिखती हैं लोन्स के केस में पर्टिकुलरली कि देयर विल बी क्वार्टरली कंपाउंडिंग. दैट मीन सपोज कीजिए कि इंटरेस्ट रेट, एनुअल इंटरेस्ट रेट इज 10%, तो दैट मीन्स कि क्वार्टरली इंटरेस्ट रेट कितना हुआ? 2.5%. 3 महीने का अगर हम सिर्फ ब्याज लगाएंगे तो कितना होगा? उसका 1/4, 2.5. 10 का 1/4, 2.5. इफ वी चार्ज एट 2.5%, जो भी इंटरेस्ट उसमें लगा, that accumulated figure will be used to calculate the next interest. जब हम सेकेंड क्वार्टर का करेंगे तो आई विल कैलकुलेट ऑन द बैलेंस प्लस द फर्स्ट क्वार्टर्स इंटरेस्ट. तो अगर मेरे 3 साल है, n is 3, number of years is 3, and the compounding periods there is 4. तो टोटल कंपाउंडिंग पीरियड्स मेरे कितने हो गए? 12. Therefore, इस केस में फ्यूचर वैल्यू का इस तरह से निकलेगा. आपको ये पता करना पड़ेगा, इस हिसाब से यू विल हैव टू कीप मल्टीप्लाइंग. We can calculate the future value of 1 lakh after 3 years at 10% interest compounded annually. This means that the interest is added back to the principal at the end of each year. Since there are 3 years, the number of compounding periods here is 3. मतलब हम ये मान के चल रहे हैं कि एनुअली हो रहा है कंपाउंडिंग, इसलिए कंपाउंडिंग पीरियड्स भी 3 है. नंबर ऑफ कंपाउंडिंग पीरियड्स यहाँ पे 3 ही हो रहे हैं. फ्यूचर वैल्यू क्या होगा? 1 lakh 1 plus 1.10 interest to the power 3. That means 1.10 multiplied by 1.10 multiplied by 1.10. जो भी फैक्टर आपका आया 1.31 something आएगा, that you multiply to your 1 lakh, you will get your amount. इतना 1.331 हो गया. Okay. So यहाँ पे you will get your value. 1,33,100. Suppose it is compounded quarterly. अगर ये क्वार्टरली कंपाउंडिंग होगा, देन ये 10 के बजाय यू विल राइट 0.025. ऊपर में यू विल राइट 4 मल्टीप्लाइड बाय 3. 3 साल 12 बार वो होगा कंपाउंड, एंड देन उतना बार you will keep multiplying like this and you will get your actual factor. In this example of 3 years, quarterly compounding means 4 times a year for 3 years or 12 compounding periods. तो मतलब कि 1.025 multiplied by 1.025 12 times. वो अगर आप करेंगे then you will end up with the factor. उसको अगर आप multiply करते हैं with 1 lakh, you will get it. And you will see कि if you do this for a long period, suppose कीजिए 3 साल के बजाय हम 20 साल कर लेते हैं, your factor will be very very substantial. इसलिए लोग कहते हैं कि अगर आप सेव कर रहे हैं तो जल्दी सेव, जिसमें कि ये कंपाउंडिंग पीरियड जो आपके हाथ में है वो ज्यादा रहेगा. If we apply the formula, what will be the rate of interest? इसको always याद रखिए कि rate of interest will have to be divided by the number of compounding periods, because जो rate of interest आपका है, that is something which is always told to you on an annual basis. जैसे यहीं पर है इस example में, the rate of interest is 10%. हमारे compounding periods 4 हैं, then I should first find out the rate of interest for 1 quarter. 10 डिवाइडेड बाय 4 इज 0.025, वो उसको लेके हम चलेंगे यहाँ पे। तो इस केस में रेट ऑफ इंटरेस्ट इज कैलकुलेटेड लाइक दिस। अगर इसको आप लेके करें इसका कैलकुलेशन, यू विल सी हाउ इट इज डिफरेंट फ्रॉम सिंपल। सिंपल में तो भाई हमारा कितना आ रहा था एक साल, और अगर इस माने 3 साल में हमारा आ रहा था, ये फैक्टर था 1.331। इफ यू डू दिस नाउ 12 टाइम्स, इमेजिन व्हाट यू विल गेट। दूसरा इसमें we look at, suppose you make an investment of 10,000 in the bonds issued by a company. As per the terms of the bond, the company has committed to give you 10% return per annum. एक bond is like a fixed deposit. Simple है. It is the instrument through which a company borrows from members of the public. एक बॉन्ड की एक कीमत वो फिक्स कर देंगे, एक फेस वैल्यू उसका होगा, लेट्स से कि 10,000, और आप पैसे उसको दे दो 10,000, वो आपको एक बॉन्ड दे देंगे। उसके साथ में एक स्पेसिफाइड रेट ऑफ इंटरेस्ट होगा, एक स्पेसिफाइड डेट ऑफ मेच्योरिटी। तो इन दिस एग्जांपल लेट्स से कि आपका रिटर्न इज 10%। इस केस में जो ये 10% रिटर्न की बात यहां कर रहा है, इज इट टेकिंग इनटू अकाउंट द टाइम वैल्यू ऑफ मनी? ये चीज आप अपने आप से पूछिए। ये पैसे आपको, अगर ये बॉन्ड 5 साल का है, अगर ये कंपनी आपको 5 साल तक ये पैसे देते रहेगी, तो ये तो आपको 10,000 रुपये जो भी इसमें आपको मिलेगा सालाना, एक एक साल के बाद ही देगी। तो आर यू एक्चुअली गेटिंग 10%? आर यू गेटिंग लेस? माई पॉइंट इज कैलकुलेट द प्रेजेंट वैल्यू, तभी आपको पता लगेगा। देन इसी कॉन्सेप्ट में थिंक अबाउट दिस, अगर आप किसी कंपनी से लेते हैं पैसे, इज इट रिस्क फ्री? रिस्क फ्री रिटर्न होता है, दिस इज द रिटर्न दैट इज ऑफर्ड टू यू विदाउट रिस्क। ऐसा आपको कौन ऑफर दे सकता है? कंपनी तो नहीं दे सकती बिना रिस्क का, बट देर इज अ रिस्क फ्री रेट इन द मार्केट। वो कौन सा है? और दूसरा इसके साथ द रिलेटेड क्वेश्चन इज कि जो भी रिस्क फ्री रेट होगा, should it be higher or should it be lower than the other rate? So 2 questions for you. Who can offer you a return without risk? Number 2, what should the rate of return be, higher or lower? जो भी
FD,
हम्म
FD, फिक्स
फिर से
डिपॉजिट, फिक्स डिपॉजिट।
नहीं, फिक्स डिपॉजिट बैंक की बात कर रहे हैं।
या
देखिए, अगर आप ये सवाल यस बैंक के डिपॉजिटर से पूछें, जिनकी रात की नींद उड़ गई थी जब यस बैंक दिक्कत में आ गया था, तो वो शायद आपसे, मेरे ख्याल में वो नहीं मानेंगे आपकी बात। यही कहेंगे कि नहीं नहीं यार, रिस्क फ्री कहाँ है, बैंक अगर आ गई दिक्कत में तब तो हमारा फिक्स डिपॉजिट भी गया हाथ से। सी द आंसर इज कि ओनली द गवर्नमेंट कैन ऑफर यू दिस। गवर्नमेंट कैन ऑल्सो ओनली ऑफर टू यू बिकॉज उसके पास में एक ऐसा टूल है विच नोबडी एल्स हैज। दे कैन प्रिंट मनी ना, वो नोट छाप सकते हैं। अगर हालत खराब हो गई, वर्स्ट केस सिनेरियो में वो नोट छाप के आपको दे देंगे, लेकिन आपको पैसा मिलेगा हर हालत में, जो भी है उसका। जो रिटर्न होगा, दिस रिस्क फ्री रेट, ये एक नॉर्मल जो कंपनी रेट ऑफर करती है उससे कम हो। जितना कम रिस्क होगा उतना कम रेट होगा। दैट इज वो आप मान के चलिए। सो इट विल ऑलवेज बी अ वेरी लो रेट। पहली बात, the rate that is offered to you by the government of a country is the risk free rate. यही रेट होता है। If the rate offered by the government on a bond issued by the government is 7%, then इसी को आप रेट मान लीजिए। ये जो 7% है, ये रिस्क फ्री रेट है उस मेच्योरिटी के बॉन्ड के लिए। ठीक है? तो when you invest with any entity other than the government, गवर्नमेंट तो आपको रिस्क फ्री दे रही है, अगर आप कहीं और अपने पैसे लगाते हैं, then in that case it is a there is a risk involved, because जिस संस्था में आप पैसे लगा रहे हैं, उसके साथ कुछ भी हो सकता है आने वाले दिनों में. समथिंग कैन ऑलवेज हैपन. एंड व्हेन यू टेक अ रिस्क, यू आर इंटाइटल्ड टू अ हायर रिटर्न. इसका मतलब है कि अगर सरकार 7% दे रही थी और वो 7% रिस्क फ्री था, तो अगर कोई कंपनी में आप पैसे लगा रहे हैं तो उस कंपनी को आपको 7% से तो ज्यादा देना होगा ना. अगर वो 7% से ज्यादा आपको नहीं देती है, देन देर इज द प्रॉब्लम. तो फिर इन दैट केस आप क्यों लगाएंगे पैसे उसमें? कहेंगे कि रिस्क फ्री में चले जाते हैं फिर. सो the amount of risk that you take has to be compensated by a higher rate of interest. इस चीज को प्लीज रिमेंबर दिस. इसी के कारण कंपनीज ऑलवेज ऑफर यू a higher rate of return for the higher risk that you take. Suppose a company offers you 10% on its bonds. Basically, it is offering you the premium for the risk that you are taking. This is the risk premium. 7% से रिस्क फ्री रेट था, ये आपको 10 दे रहा है. ये 3% जो एक्स्ट्रा है, दिस इज योर रिस्क फ्री. सो वी लुक एट इट लाइक दिस: रिस्क फ्री रेट 7, रिस्क प्रीमियम 3, रेट ऑफ रिटर्न 10. ठीक है. दिस इज द कॉन्सेप्ट बिहाइंड दिस रिस्क फ्री. नाउ annuity. Annuity is a fixed payment each year for a specified number of years. Example: you deposit rupees 1 lakh with an investment company and they promise to pay you rupees 10,000 every year for 10 years. अच्छा, इसमें ना मैं एक इंटरेस्टिंग चीज आप लोगों को बताना चाह रहा था. आप लोग से एक अर्लियर बैच की एक स्टूडेंट हमारी, वो कुछ दिन पहले मुझे एक व्हाट्सएप मैसेज भेजी जिसमें कि वो ये कही कि, लेट मी सी इफ आई कैन फाइंड दैट मैसेज. I am planning some investment in the future, for the future. I have invested in Axis Blue Chip Mutual Fund. Now I want to invest more. Can you suggest something? Okay. उसके नीचे लिखा है कि I saw a fixed income source in non-convertible debentures in my Upstocks. Upstocks is a platform for trading, मोबाइल ऐप. ठीक है. उसमें एक रिकमेंडेशन आया किसी कंपनी के बारे में कि ये नॉन कन्वर्टेबल डिबेंचर्स लगा रहे हैं. आप इसको बॉन्ड मान लो. फॉर द सेक ऑफ अंडरस्टैंडिंग, थिंक ऑफ दिस नॉन कन्वर्टेबल डिबेंचर एज अ बॉन्ड. वो एक डेट इंस्ट्रूमेंट है. कंपनी को अगर पैसा बोरो करना होता है, दे यूज दीज थिंग्स. वुड यू प्लीज टीच मी मोर अबाउट दिस, और इफ यू हैव सम सजेशंस और प्लानिंग, प्लीज सजेस्ट. नाउ, in this particular case, what is important is that उसको मैंने क्या कहा कि कंपनी आपको इसमें एक काफी हाई रेट ऑफ इंटरेस्ट ऑफर कर रही है. यहां पर वो आया नहीं है, बट द रेट बीइंग ऑफर्ड वाज क्वाइट हाई. I said, if the company is offering you such a high rate, we need to look at the risk of default. ये कंपनी क्या इतनी तगड़ी है कि ये रेट आपको वो दे दे? बिकॉज वो बॉन्ड का जो मेच्योरिटी है वो तो आगे है, 5 साल 7 साल के बाद ही है. 5-7 साल के बाद अगर वो आपको पैसे वापस करेगी, और उस समय ये ऑफर कितनी कर रही थी कंपनी? द नेम ऑफ द कंपनी वाज नीडो होम फाइनेंस लिमिटेड, NIDO, और 10.75% का ऑफर था. ठीक है. 10 साल टेन्योर, 10 years. ये हाउसिंग फाइनेंस कंपनी. नाउ रिस्क और रिटर्न दोनों को आप देखिए. रिटर्न अपीयर्स टू बी वेरी गुड. रिस्क वाला जो पार्ट इसका है, जब मैंने इसका चेक किया इस कंपनी का कि इसका रेटिंग क्या है, क्रेडिट रेटिंग इस कंपनी का क्या है, तो आई फाउंड कि इट हैज अ वेरी लो रेटिंग. द रेटिंग ऑफ द कंपनी इज लो. अगर इफ द रेटिंग ऑफ द कंपनी इज लो, 10 साल के बाद क्या होने वाला है, हु नोज. ऑलरेडी इट इज लो. अगर इसका जो भी बिजनेस मॉडल है हाउसिंग फाइनेंस का, वो ठीक से नहीं चल पड़ता है अगले 10 साल, देन व्हाट विल हैपन? इसके फाइनेंसेस सफर करेंगे. इफ इट्स फाइनेंसेस सफर, व्हाट विल बी द रिजल्ट? दे विल डिफॉल्ट ऑन द पेमेंट ऑफ द प्रिंसिपल अमाउंट. हर साल आपको 10.75 तो वो दे देंगे, लेकिन जो आपने मूलधन उसमें लगाया था, वो तो उसको आपको एक साथ लौटाना है ना. और आप जैसे और जितने लोग थे जो कि अट्रैक्टिव रेट ऑफ इंटरेस्ट देख के इसमें इन्वेस्ट कर दिए, ऑल दोज पीपल विल बी एक्सपेक्टिंग टू गेट देयर मनी बैक आफ्टर 10 years. 10 साल के बाद में अगर इसके पास में उस तरह का कैश फ्लो नहीं होता है, इस कंपनी के पास ये पैसे वापस नहीं कर पाई, अगर आपका सारा पैसा गया. जो भी आपको बीच में इंटरेस्ट मिला होगा, दैट इज ऑल. यू मे हैव लॉस्ट पार्ट ऑफ योर प्रिंसिपल और इवन द होल प्रिंसिपल. ये वाला जो ट्रेड ऑफ है बिटवीन द रिस्क and the gain, that is critical. So this risk return concept, we should always look at these things in its entirety. पहला रूल, अगर कोई आपको ज्यादा इंटरेस्ट ऑफर कर रहा है तो ये आप मान के चलो कि इसका रिस्क बहुत हाई है. कोई ज्यादा क्यों देता है किसी चीज का? बिकॉज कम में लोग उसके पास आ नहीं रहे हैं. पीपल आर नॉट कमिंग. If this company had offered only 8 or 9%, इसको कोई नहीं मिलना था. Nobody would have come. Because people would have said कि आपसे बेहतर कंपनियां मार्केट में हैं, जिनका रिस्क प्रोफाइल आपसे और कहीं अच्छा है. पैसे हम वहां क्यों ना लगाएं जो आपके पास लगाएंगे. और अगर वो some people will even say कि इससे तो बेटर है भाई कि I put it in a bank. बैंक अगर हमको 7.5% भी दे रही है भाई, वो तो पक्की बात है कि दे विल गिव मी 750, अनलेस सम कुछ अनहोनी हो जाती है और उस बैंक जो है फेल कर जाती है. अदरवाइज तो हर हालत में पैसे मुझे मिल ही जाएंगे. तो वहां हम क्यों ना डालें. ये कंपनी आपको ऑलमोस्ट 11% दे रही है आज के दिन में. दिस इज टू हाई. और अगर इतना हाई है, फाइनेंस की जानकारी आपको ये बताएगी कि रिटर्न्स आर कमेंसुरेट विद रिस्क. इस चीज को, ये पूरा सेक्शन का ये एक पार्ट है समझना कि we can never be tempted by the high return offered by some company. The moment you see a high return, the first thing which you must think of is that this is a risky thing. Otherwise, why are they paying me so much? You are being paid to compensate for the risk. That's all. And this same principle works for all lending companies. आप ये देखिए, अगर आप किसी ऑनलाइन लेंडिंग पोर्टल पर जाएं, ऐसे पोर्टल पर जाते हैं जो पैसे आप बोरो कर सकते हैं उससे, यू कैन बोरो मनी फ्रॉम देम. यू मे बी अवेयर ऑफ सच कंपनीज, विवेक. कि
Sir,
जो
I
आप,
want to discuss about one company, Nippon India ELS, मतलब tax saving fund.
फिर से बताना ना.
निप्पॉन इंडिया,
हाँ, निपन इंडिया, हाँ ठीक है.
हाँ ये टैक्स सेविंग फंड आई इन्वेस्टेड.
तो ये है ना, दिस इज अ म्यूचुअल फंड ना.
या म्यूचुअल फंड.
हाँ.
So means that time I invested just a penny amount, only means one amount 5,000.
हम्म.
Now it's today only I check, it's 10.74K only after 1 year.
हम्म.
But the problem is that there is a locking period for 3 years.
अच्छा.
Then how I will calculate that amount? What is the present value of after 3 years?
यू कांट. आप इसलिए नहीं कर सकते बिकॉज आपको पता नहीं है कि 3 साल में ये आपको कितने पैसे देगा। आपको एक एजम्पशन करना पड़ेगा। सपोज यू एज्यूम दिस सेम रेट, suppose you assume that they will continue to give you what they are giving you today, उस हिसाब से जो उसमें बनता, अभी आपको कितना हो गया उसका वैल्यू? 10,000 हो गया।
Means recent, yes. Today, right now, I checked just only. It's 10,740 rupees in 1 year.
इन 1 ईयर। ओके, चलिए अच्छी बात है। तो आपका पहला साल में इतना इंटरेस्ट हुआ, अगर इतना ही नेक्स्ट 2 इयर्स में हो जाता है लेट्स से, तो टोटल अमाउंट जो उससे आपको मिलेगा इट विल बी बहुत ज्यादा होगा ना, तो 30,000 से ऊपर हो जाएगा। आप इसको 3 साल से डिस्काउंट करेंगे फॉर 3 इयर्स। 3 साल का
Okay.
लेके आप डिस्काउंट करेंगे, ठीक है?
Correct.
चलिए इसको डिस्कस करते हैं नेक्स्ट टाइम।
Yeah,
Okay.
sure, sir.
I
Yeah.
hope today's class was good for both of you.
Yes, sir.
So, good night,
Yeah.
and we will meet again next time.
Yeah.
Bye.
Thank you, sir.
Bye.
Good night.